I've been asked, why the Pan American, you do long races all the time, but there's just something different about starting at one end of a very long road and then finishing and having no more road.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Piaro, and with me is Jake Williams. Welcome, Jake.
Thank you so much for having me back. Always great to be here.
And first time on the pod, Hannah Murray. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
The feature interview for this episode is Ashleigh Myles. In December, she set the record for fastest time of an unsupported female cyclist riding from the north end of the Pan American Highway, that's way north in Alaska, to the south, that's way at the tip of Argentina. In this interview, I talk with Ashleigh Myles about some of her many, many adventures while covering 22,412 kilometers over a bunch of days. You'll find out that number in just a second. But first, welcome, Hannah, for your first time on the pod. Readers of the magazine will be familiar with your byline. You've been contributing for a few years now. You're based in Halifax. Sometimes I like to imagine you are our Atlantic Province's bureau chief. And it's because of you that I knew of Ashleigh Myles' adventures, because she is also a Haligonian. So, Hannah, what's going on in Halifax?
Well, I mean, it is still the depths of winter out here, so we're under a bit of snow. But besides that, we are always sort of gearing up for riding season and ultra endurance, because we do surprisingly have a fair bit of that out here in the Maritimes. I know for a fact that we are gearing up for a pretty exciting race. There are two riders out here who are planning to chase the FKT for tip to tip, so the fastest known time down from Cape Sable Island up to Meat Cove. So they are getting ready for that. And I think we're all excited to see how that plays out this summer.
That's right. That's tip to tip, like you said, is from one end of the province of Nova Scotia to the other. And it's organized by Ashleigh Myles. You have done it yourself. You've braved that challenge. Tell me a bit more about the ultra endurance, ultra cycling scene. Why is it so big out there?
I don't know that I have a good answer to why is it so big out here. I think that we don't have a whole lot of cycling, maybe compared to the rest of Canada. So when an event like this comes up, all of us in the scene really tend to jump on it, especially given how sort of accessible is a funny word to use for ultra endurance, but it really is, because all you need is a bike and some bags. So I think that is really the appeal of it. When Ashleigh Myles started Tip to Tip a few years ago, I believe it was in 2020 that the first race actually went, a lot of people really saw the appeal of exploring Nova Scotia on a bike and also just tackling these massive distances that maybe they didn't think were possible initially.
I'm glad you mentioned that word accessibility, because you have a story coming up in a magazine very soon that'll be out for readers. And you look at that paradox of you have these seemingly inaccessible distances, these daunting distances, yet this discipline may be more accessible than most. Anyway, you unpack that very well in an article that readers can check out in the upcoming weeks. Let's talk a bit about racing. Now, you guys, I know you're watching the Winter Olympics, but you remember there's still bike racing on, remember?
Apparently. Yeah, I remember last episode when I said any races after Worlds don't matter. And, it has been exciting, but you can see along the sidelines of these races, fewer people. Anyways, just saying. But it has been exciting. Sorry, speaking cyclocross specifically, not to derail things completely. But it's been good.
No, we just always assume you start with cyclocross. You lead with cyclocross first.
That's fair.
It's kind of funny that we have an ultra endurance rider here in Hannah, and then you who chase the shortest races possible.
Yeah, I'm looking for every opportunity as quickly as possible to get off of my bike, whether it's cyclocross, of course. Crit racing's a great one, too. I mean, those rarely last over an hour. No bags needed for me. So, yes. Although, funnily enough, I would say the only thing ultra about cyclocross is maybe the lack of accessibility. Ultra inaccessible with tubulars. And, I mean, things are changing with gravel bikes. But, yeah, very specific sport. But I won't bore you guys with that.
But you have been following the Après Worlds series, and the racing's not bad. I would say it's still pretty good to watch. There was the Brussels University Cross. That's the final race of the X2O series.
That was a great race. I mean, beautiful conditions, of course. When snow starts to fall at a cyclocross race, I think all the fans start to kind of, lick their lips a little bit in terms of what that means for the conditions and the deterioration. What I thought was really interesting, and I don't know if I've ever actually seen this before in a cyclocross race, but a few laps in, chasing Michael Van Turnhout was his teammate, Gerben Kuipers, and he went to bunny hop the barriers, and he hit his rear derailleur, and it fell off his bike. So they zoomed into his rear derailleur, and he's running there with his bike, and I'm going, when has that ever happened? So haven't done a ton of research there, but I'm calling it first broken off derailleur. Especially with these wireless electronic derailleurs, they just sit there. They're not attached by a cable. But no, otherwise the racing was exciting. The eventual winner was Van Turnhout, but not for trying. Mr. Van de Putte on the Alpecin team was trying to hunt him down. What did you think?
I was thrilled to see snow. Insane weather seems to be a feature of races all across Europe right now. I thought the women's race was great. Lucinda Brand got out with a lead, but the star was Celine del Carmen Alvarado, who came back after a flat towards the end of the race, closed down to Brand, and then took the win. That was a great race to watch. Shall we leave cross now? There's road racing. There's road racing.
Yes. Yeah, I guess we can move over there to the pavement.
Although snowy. I don't know if anyone caught this. Stage 2 of the Tour de la Provence. In the finale, Matthew Riccatello and Carlos Rodriguez were going up this incline, and there's snow all to the sides. And I believe it was a helicopter hovering overhead was knocking snow off the trees onto these riders. It looked great. Maybe
next year they'll do a training camp, in Nova Scotia or on Ontario, just to get used to the blowing snow in the face,
That's right. That's right. Forget going to altitude. Come to Canada.
Who needs it? Yeah. Let's go.
Other notable things we've seen on the road. Luke Valenti, he won the Memorial Manuel San Roma Valencia. That was a short stage race over in Spain. That's great for the Canadian rider. What are his cyclocross palmares there?
Well, I believe he won a under 23 national title. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean he's been in the mix for a while. He's been, I would say, as local teams would put it, a local legend in the cyclocross community over the past number of years. A good kid.
Yeah, but he's been making his way up in the sort of development under 23 ranks, and it's good to see him get this success early in 2026. Other notable races, we're not going to get into everything. We're not going to get into the UAE Tour, but other notable races are oh my gosh. So this race name, I think I was saying before we started recording, it's so long, if they put it on a banner, I imagine it's wider than the actual Spanish road that it goes on. It's Setmana Ciclista Volta Femenina de la Comunitat Valenciana. It was won by Demi Vollering. And Magdalene Valliere-Mill was 6th overall. Again, weather. Stage 3 was canceled because of winds.
We're so Canadian, eh? Just talking about the weather. Oh, boy.
Oh, did you see it? It was really howling. The wind was just...
Can I say one thing about the UAE Tour?
Sure, you can say something about the UAE Tour.
The Derek G. West kit reveal, is that not the meme? The corporate wants you to find the difference between these two pictures. The guy just pinch zoomed the logo, the Canadian flag, and then rolled over and hit snooze on his alarm.
You just made the leaf bigger? That's it?
Yep, that's it. The sleeves are red, though. I think Hansen liked the red sleeve, so.
Okay, Matt Hansen, our official kit analyzer.
All right, that's Kit Corner.
Okay.
Back to important stuff.
Okay, final thing from other people racing in the department of other people racing. I was watching dots. I was dot watching. This is, I guess, on topic here for this episode. I was watching the Atlas Mountain Race. Rob Britton was there, Unbound XL winner. And he actually had a pretty crummy race. He wrote, "For the first time in my career, I wore rain pants, which honestly may have kept me alive during the hours below 0 degrees Celsius." It was a challenging race. He finished 19th overall. He had gut issues, knees going bad. But the winner in the men's category was Victor Bossoni, and he was the first male finisher. Anna Richter was the first non-binary rider to finish, and Cynthia Carson was the first female finisher. All right, long distance rides. That brings us to the feature interview with Ashleigh Myles. Now, Hannah, tell me a bit more about Ashleigh.
So Ashleigh is, as you said, a Haligonian. She has been working part-time at another local bike shop here in Halifax, and she has been an ultra-endurance and long-distance rider for many, many years, and have caught the bug after riding across Canada in 2019, and then set up two of our local ultra-endurance races in Halifax, or sort of starting from Halifax, one of them. So she is the mind behind the Tip to Tip that we mentioned earlier that I have ridden, and the Locomotion 600, which is a sort of designed to be a training ride for the Tip to Tip, which is why it's called the Locomotion.
She recently, I think, gave a presentation at the bike shop at which you work. Is that correct?
Yes. So last year, she came out to the bike shop that I work at in Halifax and did a presentation in conjunction with the Nova Scotia Randonneurs about ultra endurance cycling, and talked to all of us about how to be prepared for that, and of course the importance of sleeping in pit toilets as well.
which definitely comes up in this interview that I had with her, because we'll get into why it's important, and it's the right choice to make, especially in northern Alaska. And Ashleigh has a few tips about the etiquette of sleeping in pit toilets or outhouses, or whatever you want to call those facilities. This interview for me was fascinating. I imagine we only scratched the surface, because, you spend that long out there on the road. So many things happen. We talked about wildlife and animal encounters, of which she had. There's one species that was particularly problematic or challenging throughout most of the ride. I was impressed with how well, or how diligent she was with testing her gear beforehand. I don't want to reveal too much there, but she did it right. As they say, don't test new stuff on race day. And, well, she mostly didn't. There were a few devices that were slightly unfamiliar to her. And yeah, for me, this was a fascinating conversation, because it's just such an impressive ride to go such a great distance. So without further ado, here is my feature interview with Ashleigh Myles. Ashleigh Myles, welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Last year, you pedaled from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska to Ushuaia, Argentina. You set the record for fastest time by an unsupported female cyclist riding from the north end of the Pan American Highway to the south. How long did that take?
It took about 118 days, 2 hours and 30 minutes.
And what were the dates? When did you start riding and when did you finish?
I started on August 23rd, 2025, and ended on December 19th, 2025. It's about 119 days, but if you start from day 0 to 24 hours, that's day 0. So that's where we're getting 118 days from.
Was there a record that stood before yours?
No. So there was no female record that stood before. I did a lot of research to try to figure out if there was one, but there was nothing. There are a few men who have set records, both, on the record and off the record. But there was no evidence of any female that had tried this before. So I thought, well, let's do it.
Now, when did you notice this? When did this research and your interest in this trip start?
I'd say so about 2 years prior to starting, I was hiking Cape Chignecto with my partner, and it's like, I kind of want to do like a long ride, like maybe around the world. I'm like, no, I don't think I want to do that fast. What about the Pan American? I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like it could be fun. And I did some more research and was like, I wonder if I could like set a record for this. And is there a record? And then looked up, there's no record. So I applied to Guinness and then figured out I had to go through the World Ultra Cycling, this sort of body. And yeah, just figured out what I needed to do on the back end of things. And then it just kind of ran from there. But actually, when I was sort of planning this, I was doing some cleaning and I found a magazine from National Geographic that I had from 2010. And I kept it because I read a story about this guy who took public transit from Washington, D.C. all the way down to Ushuaia. And I thought that was super cool. And I found it and I was like, I wonder if it's been in the back of my head for, 13 years. And maybe it was. I don't know.
That's interesting. The seed was possibly planted a while ago with that National Geographic article. I want to get into details about setting a record and all of that. You mentioned a bunch of organizations that were involved. But you said on that hiking trip, you wanted to do a big ride. Hadn't you already been doing big rides at that point? I should mention you are the organizer of Tip to Tip, a ride/race in Nova Scotia that starts at the south end at Cape Sauble Island and ends in Meat Cove. And you also organize Locomotion 600, which is from Halifax to almost around Moncton and then back again. Tell me about your involvement with those races. Hadn't you already been doing those by the time you're like, maybe I want to do a long ride?
Yeah, I mean, that was in the the fifth year of the Tip to Tip was last year. So I've been sort of doing this stuff for at least 5 years. But in 2024 or maybe 2023, I forget. It wasn't 2023. I was riding the Tip to Tip just like on my own and was like, I think I can do this. I think I want to do something longer than this. And that was after hiking Cape Chignecto and figuring out about the Pan American and then really sort of cementing it and being like, you know what? I think this is too short for me now. I think I can do something much longer. I've been asked, why the Pan American, you do long races all the time, but there's just something different about like starting at one end of a very long road and then finishing and having no more road.
I actually have this question, like you've been doing long rides and then you said, this is too short for me. Is that the thought process of an ultra endurance cyclist? You just want to go longer and longer? 600 kilometers just doesn't feel like it's having an effect anymore?
I think so. Yeah. Like it's sort of like when you go to the gym, you start with a certain amount of weight and after a little while that gets too easy. So you up it and that gets too easy. So you up it. I think your muscles are just growing and your desire to go further is just growing and growing. And I mean, it kind of went from 0 to 100 relatively quickly. The only bigger thing I could do would be around the world, but I don't know if I want to do that day after day fast. I mean, there's already records that have been set and there's already somebody who's about to set like the record for around the world, in the fastest amount of time. And I have no interest in actually doing that, but your desire just grows. That's all. I mean, some people, they're like, that's it. That's all I want to do. But I think for endurance cyclists, sometimes it's just like, what else can I do? How can I one up this? But also, even though you do something big, doesn't mean that the next thing has to be as big. It can be small. But I think your you're sort of, with every event you do, with every long distance ride you do, you're always changing. So you're always challenging yourself in different ways. So for me, it might be time to move off road because that might be, that's going to be more challenging. So
the next challenge might be knobby tires and straight or riser bars.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, maybe we'll circle back to that later. Why did you start near the end of August?
So I started near the end of August to sort of not go through. So because I'm going starting in the Northern Hemisphere and going all the way down to the Southern Hemisphere, I wanted to start in like late summer. So I would hit up late summer, and as I was riding, it would become fall. And when I hit Central America, it would be fall-ish. And then we're kind of getting into spring in South America and then summer in South America. So that was kind of the ideal way to go. So I wasn't hitting any forest fires in the Northern Hemisphere in the summer. If I'd started in June or July, I would have hit really, really hot weather, probably some fires. And then when I got down south, it would have been winter. I think riding with the mildest weather is probably the best way to do it.
But on that note, you still faced some serious weather. You faced lots of rain right off the bat. There was heat in the U.S. still. And Central America was pretty wet, wasn't it? Sort of rainy season?
It was very wet in Central America. Yeah, that was one thing. I went through the rainy season in Central America, and I knew that was going to happen, but I couldn't quite conceptualize how much rain was going to be there. It was so much rain.
Interesting. So you said, oh yeah, rainy season, that can't be that wet. And then you realized it was very wet.
It's very wet. Yeah.
Tell me about the paperwork that goes into setting a world record. Because to be honest, it kind of looks like doing taxes to me. You have to have all your receipts. And you mentioned the Guinness World Records and the World Ultra Cycling Association. Give me a picture of like what needs to be done to have an official world record.
So in 2022, if any like cycling related thing, like in terms of cycling, like any sort of ultra cycling thing, you want to get verified by Guinness, you have to go through the World Ultra Cycling. You have to go through WUCA, and then they give you a list of all the things you have to do pre, during, and post ride. And then when they verify it, they then tell Guinness, yes, this has been verified. And then Guinness says, okay, you can submit some evidence, and then it's on their website. But with the World Ultra Cycling Association, I forget exactly what I had to do pre-ride. There was like, you have to write out sort of a summary of what you're going to do. For unsupported cycling, it's not as much as like if I was going to do a time trial on a course, like the course has to be like marked out and you have to tell them where you're going to go and all this stuff. But what I had to do, because this is technically now the first official Pan American highway ride, I was able to choose the start and the end point and different checkpoints along the way. So if anybody else goes and wants to be verified by WUCA, they have to start at the same point, end at the same point, and go through all the different checkpoints that I set out as well. So it kind of gives you a general route to take for the Pan American Highway, because previously that wasn't the case. WUCA wasn't verifying any of this, but now that they are, now you have to set, in order to sort of set the same record, you have to do the same course or hit the same points. So when I was choosing the checkpoints, I looked at what people have done in the past and what most cyclists would sort of agree the Pan American Highway route is, and chose checkpoints within that. And then during the ride, so I couldn't change the checkpoints during the ride. Once I left, that was it. And then during the ride, I had to keep a log. So every day I had to record on Strava. And if you didn't know Strava, there was another way that you could do it. But every day I had to record and take at least one picture. And then, when you take a picture, you kind of like flip up and then it tells you the exact time and location, like the GPS coordinates. So I had to post that on my Strava post so that it sort of verified, like I was somewhere here midway through the ride. And you can see I had a spot tracker as well, which helped verify. That wasn't necessary on the on my like sort of daily log. But if anything happened, I could go back to that. You also needed a witness to sign a book every day. So every day, I had to get somebody to sign date, time, place, and their name, just to verify once again if my Strava wasn't working, if something was happening with my spot tracker, could go back to this book and being like, okay, well, you were here at this time, and that like this person saw you here at this time, so we can verify that. And if something was happening with my GPS, the idea is that I would just get somebody to sign it once every hour, once every couple hours, so you can kind of verify as you're going along. And with a log, so it would go from like day 1 or day 0 to 119 or 118, I guess. And I'd have to put in the date, the time I started, the place I started, the distance, and then a link to the Strava activity. So that was my sort of admin every day. And I found myself getting behind. I think I got behind about 5 days. And I mean, it's all on Strava, but just going back, spending time going back and adding it, you're like, I cannot get behind again. This is too much work at the end of the day. Like, okay. And because you have to ride the entirety of the road. So if there was a tunnel I couldn't go through, and there were 2 tunnels I technically wasn't allowed to go through.
One was near Medellin, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah. So I'd have to stop, save my ride, and then record going through the tunnel, and then stop that. And then if I could make up the distance right after, I would. So if it was like 4 kilometers, I would start again. I would ride out 2 kilometers and then ride back 2 kilometers and stop that. So that was a distance that I couldn't ride through the tunnel. And then I'd start through the tunnel my second part of the ride through the day. So that would be like all the distance, all the road that I would have to ride. If there was a ferry crossing like there was in Patagonia, there is no road to ride, so you don't have to make up the distance for the ferry because there is no road. It's not possible. And then going across the Darien Gap, because it's the only part of the route that there is no road, you, instead of flying from Panama City to wherever, like on the same latitude, in Colombia, you have to go up about 100 and however many kilometers to make up the distance that you couldn't ride. So that's why I flew from Panama City to Cartagena, because it's further north. So you're making up that distance as you go down. If there was a road, that would have been fantastic. But because like there's nothing like, stopping and be like, I got to take my bike apart, put it on a plane, and then build it back up like 2 hours later. Damn it.
Right. It's a puddle hop of a flight in a way. And then it's just so much more work for you with your bike and all of that extra stuff.
Yeah, which when people go around the world, I admire that, because you're like taking apart your bike, like, I don't know how many times, at least 2 or 3 times. And it's just like, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you have your bike all set up, it's like, we're just going to ride. I'm not going to touch it.
Now, with the witness book, were there days where you were struggling to find a person?
Surprisingly, no. I thought in Alaska I'd have a hard time finding people, but there's a lot of people on the road. There's truckers, there's people going hunting. Surprisingly, a lot of people. There was going through Patagonia. There was, a town maybe every 100 kilometers or so. And at that point, I was just so tired. I would go into like a gas station in a town and be like, okay, remember the witness book. You have to get it signed. And then I walk in, walk out, leave, and be like, damn it, I have to go back, walk in, and get it signed. And then, so yeah, that was a little bit rougher, but because I was just tired. But there was just everybody somewhere, and it was kind of cool, honestly. Throughout my time in Colombia, there's a few people that one woman wrote this really lovely note. And then the person who was like, what do I do? They saw it. They saw the note and like, I have to write a note. And so I was like, no, like, we don't have to write notes. It's really lovely. But I was like, I'm going to write onto space. Like, but it was really nice to just like meet people that way. And because when you're on the road, you're sort of in the zone, and it's to break out of that and to like talk to people is nice. And I think yeah, even though it's a verification tool, I think it's kind of one of those things where some days you're like, oh my God, I have to get this book signed. And other days you're like, I get to talk to people. This is exciting.
Now, what does unsupported mean in terms of your ride? Like, what kind of help were you not allowed to have?
So unsupported means that essentially I do everything myself. If I need to find a place to stay, that's on me. Need to find food, that's on me. Essentially, anything that's commercially available to anybody doing this ride is fair game. There are such things as trail magic, and that is so if somebody is on the side of the road and you don't know them, and they come up and they're like, "Well, you're riding your bike. What are you doing?" And they're like, "Here, take some water." You can do that because it could happen to anybody. There was an instance where I was in Panama and some guys were on the side of the road and they're like, yeah, like calling me down. And I was like, no, I'm not going to stop here. I'm just going to keep riding. And then they stopped further up and they're like, yeah, and they was holding this bag. And I was like, oh, okay. So I pulled over and they're like, we have this fruit for you. Like you're riding. I see you're traveling. We bought this fruit for you. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. So yeah, stuff like that is allowed because it could happen to anybody. The difference is, if I had like a friend or a family following me and they were like, here's water, that's supported. Or if anybody I knew met me on the road and like was hanging out for a while and were like, I'm gonna buy you dinner. It's like, we can't do that.
Tell me a bit about your bike and the setup.
So my bike is by Fluent Frameworks. It's a custom steel frame bike that was made for me in 2023. Yeah, it was fantastic. It is made for my body, my limbs. I found out I'm a short person while building the bike, um, which is fine.
What do you mean? You didn't know you were short beforehand?
Well, I had this idea that I was like, yeah, I belong on a medium frame bike, and it's like, actually, no, no, you're not as tall as you thought you were. So that's fine. Nothing wrong with being a short person, but it was just like cool. It was really great to have a bike that was fit for me because I didn't have any like there was no issues physically. The only problem was like if I was like, oh my God, there's more wind today. I don't want to ride my bike. It was just a mental thing, which is great. But yeah, I had electronic shifting on there, so SRAM Force, which really helped. If you ever do long distance, you get what's called the claw, where you like try to shift and you just have no more, you get like nerve damage. So it was nice not to have that issue. I ran a SP Dynamo hub in the front and it powered my front light and like a USB charger, which I didn't actually need all that often, but it was useful. Yeah, I had some profile design aero bars, which were super useful. I had been trying out my kit for like 2 or 3 years prior, or I guess 2 years prior to this, just kind of mixing and matching and figuring out what works and what doesn't work and how do I feel on this. So everything that I had on my bike, I had ridden with for at least 2 years prior, which really helped. Nothing was new. I think that really helps in terms of packing and like how the bike feels on the road, because when you have new equipment, like new bike, new equipment, and you go do something, anything, you're like, I need to change this. And for me to say I need to change this on the Alaskan highway would not have been a good idea. I ran 700 by 32 tires, Continental GP, 4 seasons. Excellent. One tire. So when I was in Calgary, I got them swapped and I rode one tire. It was on the front and then I moved it to the back and it has 18,000 kilometers on it.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a spare tire with me, but I was just like, I wonder how long this will last. And so it lasted for a while. It's definitely time to change it, but I was really impressed. Yeah, I had an Arkell seat packer, which is awesome. It's held up. No issues. I'm going to use it this weekend to ride the Cabot Trail. I had like a frame bag made by Hilly Goose, which they no longer exist, but that was pretty sweet. It's retired now. It's no longer waterproof. And a couple feed bags as well, and a top tube bag, and an arrow bar harness, which was made by Thrill Supply Company. I think they're out in the Yukon, and it held like all my sleeping gear and stuff, which I had in like an 8-liter dry bag.
And it sounds like you really held to that old adage of like, don't test anything new on race day. 2 years of testing in some cases. That's impressive.
Yeah.
But it worked. It seems to have worked.
Yeah, I kind of like was like, I wonder if I could change it up or like try this new bag. And the back of my mind, it was like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Right, because you'd put on a new bag and then you'd find it rubbing against a tire or something like that. It just would, yeah, something would happen invariably. Is there any piece of equipment that you brought that you then thought, that wasn't so important. Maybe I won't bring it next time?
Not really, actually. I think everything I brought was pretty much was what I needed. I did bring an extra pair of socks and my Darn Tough socks. I ended up wearing them almost every day. I think I used the spare socks once, but I didn't like them. So I was like, well, I'm just going to like wash these socks and then try to dry these socks. And I would wear sometimes wet socks because I just preferred the way they felt. So yeah, those socks, I had to wash them. I pre-soaked them for a couple hours and then washed them like 3 separate times before I felt like this is post-ride after. I was like, maybe I'll wear these again, but they're still holding some sweat and dirt, I'm sure.
Still some memories from the ride in those socks.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I can imagine them standing up on their own. Tell me the importance of deodorant.
So deodorant, so before this ride, I was like, you know what? If I go to bed and I stink, I wake up in the morning, I put some deodorant on, it's like, fresh, like we're ready to go. But I actually didn't use deodorant for this entire ride because when I was in Alaska, I was actually shopping for a small deodorant because I realized the one I brought was the empty one. And this guy was also looking for a deodorant. He's like, is there anything that doesn't smell down here? And I was like, what do you mean doesn't smell? And he's like, well, when you're out there, like you don't want bears to smell you. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. And so I actually just didn't buy deodorant. I was like, I'm going to be out here. I don't want bears to smell me. Good idea. And I just didn't use deodorant throughout Alaska. And I just forgot to use it from then on. And honestly, it didn't make a difference because I was smelling either way. And I just was like, I would wake up, in a pit toilet and be like, like whatever. If I stink, it's probably a good thing. So no deodorant.
Okay. On the topic of pit toilets, on your Strava, day 7, the post is Delta Junction to rest stop. You write in the description, puncture 1 from a wire from a car tire. Pit toilet sleeps 3. So you're 7 days in to your trip and you've already slept in 3 outhouses. Is that what I'm to take from that?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Why is that the right thing to do?
So on the Dalton Highway, there's some camps that you can stay at, but mostly there's really nothing. Actually, just on the Alaska Highway period, there's not much. And the pit toilets there are like steel and cement. And so when you go inside, they're usually really spacious. They get you out of the wet and cold, which is what it was. And they lock, so you're safe from bears. And I was like, you know what? This is fantastic. So if I wasn't sure where I was going to be, I would just go into a pit toilet, hang my stuff, hang out there, and it would be warmish. I'd be safe. And yeah, I could just kind of hang my stuff to dry. And there's a bathroom right there. So it worked out pretty well.
What are your top tips for sleeping in an outhouse? What does one need to consider when that's where you're spending the night?
Well, just like wild camping, you have to get there relatively late and you have to leave early. And if there are 2 pit toilets, that's good because you can go into one, lock one, and somebody has the use of another one if they need it. So that's being considerate. It's usually big enough that you can bring your bike in and you can lay like a tarp on the ground and then put your bivvy or whatever over top of it. But yeah, that's usually the nice part. And if it locks, it's even a better idea. But along the Alaska Highway, like from the Dalton Highway, I'd say down to like Tok, the outhouses were pretty good. But then they got less and less blockade like, and it wasn't as appealing to sleep in there because they were smaller. There was less. Clearly there were more people that were using them, and I was like, this isn't as good anymore. So I just slept outside.
Now, you mentioned bears. What are some of the other animal-related safety considerations you had to take?
Well, bears, and then coyotes, and then dogs down in Central and South America. Bears were a big thing for the majority of Canada and the US. A lot of the times I had a bear bell until I lost it, in which case I would just use my voice. And then I had a horn and bear spray. And as I was going along conversations with people, and they're like, when you come up against a bear, use the horn, don't use a spray. I was like, interesting, because if you use a spray, you're usually too close. And if you're in the wrong direction of the wind, the spray is going to come back at you. And I was like, that's a lot to think about when you're faced with a bear. Okay. So I think I'll use the horn. And there was a time, I think I was riding might have been the Yukon, I think, but I was riding into a town and there's just like bears lining the sides of the roads at dusk. And and I was like, oh my God, like I think I might have seen like 30 bears in the course of a couple hours. I was like, holy crap. So I was just like talking really loudly, singing, just doing whatever I could to let them know that I was there. And it was fine. They were just like, they were eating, they were coming out to eat. And that was all good. But I think the worst part was like dogs. Dogs in front. Well, I had some dog encounters in the States, and then Mexico onward were plentiful. There was dogs. I find that if they're stray dogs and they have like some sort of area to protect that they feel like they own, they're going to come after you. And dogs that are just stray, they have no tie to a place, are usually like very chill. They just sit on the side of the road and watch you go by. But being chased by dogs was big. My grandmother gave me this like whistle. She's like, you should use it if you're, being chased by dogs or whatever. And after a few weeks of being chased by dogs, I was like, I should find this whistle. So I used it and it worked, but it was really hard to pedal hard and whistle at the same time. So I'd have to pedal, pedal. I was like, okay, it's working great. But then some of the times if I had like nuts or whatever, I would just take a handful and throw it at them and they would just be like, oh, what's this? And then go eat. Or I'd like spray some water and they would usually leave me alone. But yeah, there were a few really brave dogs that just came right up, and one of them tore my dry bag that was on the back. And then another one like ran into my fork and whimpered away. And I was like, what did you think was going to happen when you ran towards this moving vehicle? Yeah, there were some pretty intense moments with dogs.
So from the challenge of animals, mostly dogs, there's also food could be an issue. You got food poisoning while you were in Mexico. What changes did you make after that?
I got what's called Montezuma's revenge, or traveler's diarrhea, in Mexico. I guess I ingested water, maybe from brushing my teeth, maybe from the shower. Not too sure, but I decided that I was going to be very careful about drinking any of the water. And B, I was going to go and get food. So I was going to go to the grocery store or wherever and get food for dinner and then breakfast and lunch and do the same thing. And I ended up doing that basically until the end of my trip. just because I was like, I don't have time to be sick. Like, I can't afford to be sick, both time-wise and physically, because I got food poisoning in Costa Rica, and then I had a cold for about a week and a half from Colombia into Ecuador. So, yeah, I ended up just getting foods that I were packaged, that I knew that my stomach could take, and I was just eating those throughout. When I was in Panama, before I got on a plane to go to Colombia, I came out of the shower and I was like, "Oh, whoa." I could, like, see my ribs, I could see my shoulder blades, and I was like, You need to put on some weight because you have 10,000 kilometers left, and this is not gonna work." Being sick, I wasn't able to, like, obviously hold down food. I was still riding. In Mexico, I took 2 days off because I couldn't. I was really bad. I couldn't keep food down, had kinda, like, a bit of a fever, with this as well, and so I stayed for 2 days to try to feel a bit better. But I lost a lot of weight, and I didn't have a lot of energy, and so just, like, trying to pedal and then try to eat enough calories to sustain myself. Just it wasn't balancing out, and I lost too much weight. Like, I had, like, fat stores and weight to lose, but I got to the point where I was like, actually, you're not going to make it down if you don't start eating. And so I found this really excellent 2,000 calorie meal where you get a bag of chips or corn chips, you crush them up. And I was putting, like, chili con carne or beans in there. And then I would get, like, a tomato, usually some mayonnaise or guacamole or avocado, and, like, mix it up all together. And you eat that at the end of the night. And it was, like, perfect. It gave me 2,000 calories. I wasn't burning it right away because I was just going to sleep. And then the next day I would, like, make sure I had lots of carbs, and then I would make, like, PB and jam sandwiches if I could find it for lunch, and had a lot of sugary drinks, and that was, like, great. I was getting protein, I was building my muscles back up again, and being able to, like, stomach and keep food down, which was key. But yeah, I was a little scary because, like, I've never seen that before, and it's like, this is why you're having a hard time carrying your bike upstairs, because you don't have energy to carry your bike upstairs. And yeah, so that was eye-opening. And then getting a cold in going through the Andes, my bones were aching. I had, like, a sore throat. I had a headache. I was just like, is this altitude sickness? Nope. This is just you being sick. Cool. So just well, if I was touring, I could have been like, okay, you're gonna stay somewhere and, like sleep and try to get better. But I ended up sleeping more and riding less, trying to, like, still ride, but try to, like, also get better. And it worked. It worked. It also helped that there was a lot of elevation I was going through, and I was like, I am doing the best I can today. We're getting through this beautiful area. And then I'm going to go sleep a lot.
You kind of touched on this, but when you had to take 2 days off in Mexico, was the clock still ticking in the back of your mind in the way you're thinking, I should be riding right now? Like, how did you balance out that pressure of, like, I'm trying to set a record here while taking care of yourself?
It was hard. Like, I don't know. It's hard to determine, if I'm sure if I had a partner there, you know, my parents there, they'd be like, stay in bed. Like, you can't ride, stay in bed for a week or something. And it's like, that's just not going to happen. I can't do it. Cause I felt guilt for not riding. Like, you're here to ride, you should ride. But also you physically, you cannot ride. If you can barely walk from, your bed to the bathroom, like, it's not safe to be on the road. And that was another consideration.
Throughout the trip, you were doing so much documentation. You're taking video. I believe you're sending voice memos to friends who would write up blog posts on your site. Are you a natural documenter, or was this added work? I guess you kind of alluded to that earlier when you fell behind in the records documentation that you needed for the records. But this other stuff, was it easy to put into the mix of all that you were doing?
At first, it was quite easy because I like using the audio diaries as sort of like a form of reflection and therapy at times was nice, and then became a bit of work, particularly with the audio diaries. There was a point in, let's say, Peru, where I was just feeling really low, and I honestly didn't want to talk, didn't want to do my audio diaries, and I just pivoted to writing because that's how I could just sit there, eat, and write, and that's what I need to do. I needed to do my chores at night, eat food, and record somehow, but I just didn't have the energy or the willpower to talk. I eventually did. I got behind on those, but I did. Taking photos was really easy for me because that's how I usually document things. Short videos as well. What was a little bit harder was taking footage with the GoPro that I had. The idea was that I would, try to be creative and like take cool videos, but in reality, I'm not good at pointing the camera at myself and recording myself or really using a GoPro. And that's something I should have done probably when I was testing out all my kit. I should have been testing out the GoPro too, but I didn't have this GoPro at that time. So it didn't really work for me. But I ended up getting a bit better at it. There was a few instances, actually numerous times, where I was like, man, this GoPro is dead. Why? And it turns out I just forgot to turn it off. And so I have this like many videos of the GoPro being in my feed bag. It's just like, it's like ASMR of cycling, so which is kind of cool. But which is why I didn't record much, because I was like, I don't understand why the battery isn't lasting. It's because I'm, I guess, forgetting to turn it off, or it turned on in my bag. I don't know. I eventually started to get a bit better at it. And a lot of times I was just in my head. I was like, you got to go, like you got to be here by this time. You don't have time to stop. But I had time to get my phone out and take some photos because I'm used to doing that and taking videos with my phone. But my GoPro was like, it's in this waterproof case in my bag because it's been raining, and every time I bring it out, it rains. So I think it's just like, maybe I just don't use it because then it won't rain. Became very like
superstitious almost.
Superstitious, which is weird. So I ended up not using it for a little bit, but became easier when it was just perpetually dry. So I just would take it out and take some cool videos. And then I found it a lot easier when I was by myself in the desert. I just kind of like put it on and talk to it and then record some stuff, because I was like, well, there's got nothing else to do right now. There's nothing to see. It's dry. It's never going to rain. Like
on these big trips, I've heard of ultra cyclists talking about high moments and low moments. In a conversation I had with long-distance rider Mark Beaumont on this podcast, he said psychological crashes, those low moments, are more often than not connected with a fueling or hydration mistake. Did that match with your experiences, or did you see low moments in different contexts?
That actually makes a lot of sense. I knew when I was having a low moment, I would always ask myself, okay, when was the last time you ate? / are you hungry? Are you dehydrated? Like, what do you need physically to feel better? And that is definitely related. Like, I find when people scratch or don't finish a race or whatever, it's usually because they're hungry or they're dehydrated or they're lacking something, or they just need sleep. And then they feel better. But sometimes the low moments can just be like, wow, I just feel sad out here and I don't know why. And it can just be something that you're going through, like, on that's not food or hydration related. But oftentimes a low moment is definitely correlated to, I haven't fed myself in a while. Yeah. And then the high moments, like, they're fantastic, but the higher the highs, the lower the lows, I find.
Really?
Yeah.
Invariably.
And yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean like it's going to get higher, it's going to get lower. It's just if you have a really high moment, sometimes you can be feeling like really emotional. And then if you have a low moment, it can also be really emotional.
Right. Really strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Following along with feelings, can you describe the moment that you got into Ushuaia, Argentina?
When I got to the sort of the entries or gate of Ushuaia, it's like, oh my God, I've seen photos of this, but I can't believe I'm actually here. This is amazing. So I stopped and I just like stood by it for a minute. And this guy, I guess, was going for a run. He's like, do you want a photo? Oh, sure. So got a photo of me there. And I just kind of hung out for a little bit longer and was like, okay, wow, we're gonna go into this town now, and then that's gonna be it. And it was kind of like it was really strange to know that it was over. My partner was, of course, there down by the sign in town, and that was really really great to see him. But getting through town, so when I started in South America, I realized I forgot to download the South America map to my Garmin. And so for the longest time, I was just following this like purple line on my GPS, and luckily it's mostly just a straight road. But when I finally left the gates, I was like, okay, now don't get lost because you don't have direction to get down there. So I was looking on Google Maps, being like, okay, like this is how I get there. Oh, this is really straightforward. Okay. So instead of being like a magical, rolling into town and you just keep going, I was like, don't get lost because every town I've gone into, I've gotten lost because for some reason I am just not good with directions. I'm always like, it's a turn here. And they're like, no. I said, backtrack and go this way. So I was really afraid of that. And I was like, you can't end and like go past the ending, like this is not gonna
You have to stick the landing. You can't miss it.
Yeah, it was just really funny. And for the longest time, my Garmin was just like, follow road, ride to end of road. And I was like, haha, okay, I'll ride to the end of the road. But yeah, it's kind of weird. And honestly, I still haven't come to terms with what just happened and the end. I still get very emotional when I think about like the last day riding. I wanted to sort of savor it for a while. Um, there was the last pass, which was about 500 meters, which was really cute, but the mountains look a lot bigger than they actually are. And then you kind of descend and you kind of like climb up and then you descend down into Ushuaia. And there's a few little like climbs in between there. And while I was on that road, I was like, yeah, like we're going for it. And then I started to get really hungry and I'm like, oh God. So I stopped and had a burger. Like, you know what? If you're bonking, you're getting hangry, you still got to eat. So I stopped on this guardrail, ate a burger, and was like, okay, now we can go. It's just like, it was just like, even though you're so close to the end, you still need to eat. And it was just kind of like a humbling moment where like, you're still on this ride, it's almost done, but you still have to like, get there.
Is this trip over? And I guess what I mean by that is you said you maybe still haven't come to terms with the finale. And also, is there more that you have to do, whether that's in relation to the record or maybe it's even just more documenting that you need to do?
I think the goal is to, or for me at least, I have all these audio diaries from every day, and I have yet to transcribe them or put them into a transcribe app. But I think what I'm going to do is maybe I want to say like maybe write a book, if only for myself, really, so that I don't forget what happened. Because oftentimes I'll come back from a trip and be like, cool, have all this stuff. That's that. But I would like to, like, I don't want to forget it. I want to, in 20 years, look back and be like, maybe like read this book that I put together and be like, oh, cool, like this happened and this happened. Even if the audio files are like not accessible anymore, it'll be there. And got some presentations to do as well, which will be fun. We're still trying to kind of put those together. Maybe like take my footage and put together a little documentary or something would be kind of cool. And like, if people want to read what I have to say, I'm sure I'll have it probably in a couple years. Honestly, if anybody wants to see footage of it, probably put something together. But in the meantime, I'm still kind of trying to figure out not how to feel about it, but like it just hasn't sunk in that it's happened. And it's really, I don't know how long that's going to take or what. Yeah, it's a very weird feeling, but yeah, I'll be putting stuff together. And every time I go through footage, I'm like, oh yeah, wow, cool. And then it hits me like, great, you were there, you did this. And I think part of it is like you go from, your lifestyle, before you leave on the trip, and then you go, your lifestyle changes while you're on the trip, and then it's changing again when you get back. And it's that like in between part where you're like, did I live this life? I did. Cool. Okay. Now what?
Right. But when you come back, there's all the familiar trappings of your house, and you fall right back into it. And then the trip you just did, even though it was 118 days, it maybe seems dreamlike.
Yeah.
Almost too soon.
It does. Yeah. It seems like, like that's it. And honestly, like the last couple days of riding, like on that last day of riding in particular, when I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do it. This has happened. In the back of my mind, I was like, you know what? Let's just ride home, And when I left Alaska on day 2, I met this guy from the Netherlands, and he rode from Argentina up to Alaska. So we were like crossing paths, which was super neat. And he'd been gone for about 2 years. And he told me like he's met some people that will ride from Alaska to Argentina and then turn around and ride back. And I was like, that's nuts. Like, why would you do that? And then at the end, I'm like, I get it. I would do that.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And I didn't think that would ever be the case, but I think I fell more in love with riding than when I had started. And I was just like, thank God, this could have gone the other way and it didn't. And I'm just so happy that this is how I feel and this is what I want to do. So like, fantastic. So going through all this footage that I have is like, whoa, it feels like another life, but it feels like something that I could easily slip back into, which is really nice.
So you mentioned possibly off-road riding. Are there any more plans in that direction?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about putting together like an off-road tip-to-tip, and I think that'd be really fun because there's so much like backroad stuff in Nova Scotia. But in terms of like riding or racing for myself, I'd like to try like the Highland Trail 550 in Scotland. That's sort of been on my radar for a couple of years, but I've been working on this, so it wasn't really doing much mountain biking or anything to prep for that. And then the log driver's waltz, I like to go back and do it again. Did it with my partner a couple of years ago, and I want to do the full thing. We just did half, and just some more like local gravel events. By local, I mean like Eastern Canada or just Canada, honestly.
Well, when you've traveled the 2 continents, Canada seems local.
Yeah, but something like that. And I would like to start doing some more off-road stuff and, even some road races in and around Canada, because there's a lot of stuff that we have to offer. And I'm trying to grow the scene out in Nova Scotia so that, if people like me want to go do events, they don't have to travel far. It's not a lot of money. It's like, it's more accessible. And so, yeah, that's the idea. But I do want to do some more off-road stuff because it is fun. It is slower, so I have to taper my expectations. Oftentimes when I want to gravel ride with my partner, he's like, it's the adventure. And I'm like, but we're not going fast or far. Like, it's very hard for me to comprehend. And I just have to
let go of those big numbers?
Yeah, let go of the big numbers. Like, no, if we're doing 50 kilometers in a day, but we're doing this terrain, that's good. And it's like, okay, that's right. For me, when I get on the road, I'm like, let's go.
Well, Ashleigh, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for telling us about these crazy facets of your journey. And I look forward to hearing of any new adventures that come your way.
Yeah, thank you.
And And that's the episode. It is written and edited by me, Matthew Pioro. I had help from Jake Williams. Thank you, Jake.
You're welcome.
And Hannah Murray. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also behind the scenes is Matt Hansen. When he's not analyzing national champions jerseys, he's hard at work on the website and helping me out in all kinds of ways. This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is produced by Adam Killick. He did the music too. And thanks to Ontario Creates for its support. There was, as I said at the beginning, there was so much in that interview that was fascinating. You guys probably noticed how I was trying to maybe get a dig in there when I said, this keeping track of all the things you need to do to qualify for a record. It sounds like taxes, which it kind of does to me. It kind of sounds bureaucratic and annoying. I was surprised about the witness book that Ashleigh had to get signed every day because, yes, it has this function of tracking and keeping all the records straight, but it led her to, meeting people. It gave her a pretext for saying hi and talking to someone. And then also these really sweet moments where someone starts writing a message and then the next person thinks they have to write a long message. And she's like, no. That's lovely, but you can fill up my book. Anyway, what struck you, Hannah?
What really struck me was you mentioned Mark Beaumont saying that the sort of highs and lows of ultra endurance are often connected to fueling, which I think is very, very on point. And then, but also Ashleigh's response of the higher the highs, the lower the lows. And that definitely connects to my own experience. If you're that sort of elated on these highs, there's just so much further to fall. I know when I rode the tip-to-tip race back in 2024, my last day, I crossed the causeway over into Cape Breton, which was just a huge, huge high point for me because I didn't think I was going to make it that far by myself. And then cut to a few hours later, I was sobbing by the side of a highway in Cape Breton, leaving just a crying voicemail to my dad because I was just so far from anywhere. So definitely there are highs and lows in ultra endurance, and they come at you fast when you're on the road.
That's amazing. I found that dimension also interesting. I don't know if I'm emotionally prepared for ultra endurance. Speaking with Ashleigh definitely made me, start thinking, okay, maybe I should do something really, really long, but I'm not ready. I'm not emotionally prepared, everybody. I'm just not that strong. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, Jake and Hannah. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please tell a friend. We love new subscribers to the podcast. Tell a friend about the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. And everyone, ride safely, and we'll talk to you later.